Hi there, Telco Chums. This is Dan Jones, editor at Next TMT Networks, and I'm here with Tim Farrar, the president of TMF Associates, and we're going to talk about the SpaceX Starship delayed launch and how that will affect all the liftoffs from Starlink and many other companies. So let's get into it. Hi there, Tim. How are you?
Hi. Fine, Dan, thanks.
Hi. Well, first off, we talked a little bit beforehand, and obviously we were kind of not shocked, but kind of not even stunned, in fact. But just England did not succeed in the World Cup, unsurprisingly.
That's what you expect, isn't it?
Yes, pretty much. They played a pretty good game against France in the end, although I don't think France actually wanted to win. So
Yeah.
there we go.
It was exciting when there was nothing at stake.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So talking about the Starship launches or the Starship launch that now appears to be delayed till Thursday this week. How will that, I mean, do you think that's going to affect SpaceX, Starlink, and also other companies in the field around that?
Well, I mean, this is a minor delay. I think the real question going forward is how much they can speed up the tempo. I mean, getting to the next launch about 2 months after the previous launch is pretty reasonable, given that they'd had quite lengthy gaps at some points in the past, and they've moved to this new engine and done some upgrades. We're still waiting for them to get to orbit. The ambitions for this mission aren't that ambitious. So it's really the launches that come after this one that are going to set the precedent for getting satellites into orbit. They are going to put some test Starlink satellites on here, not just the mass simulators that they've used before, but also real ones that they're going to try and communicate with. But those are only going to be up in space for something like 20 minutes before they burn up. And so really, we've got to get Starship going to orbit. We've got to get satellites being launched off it on a regular basis. And then we've got to bring down, the tempo from, a launch every 2 months is not great compared to the launch every 2 days or so that we're seeing with Falcon 9. So even though Starship may have more capacity, if it can't get the tempo down to, let's say, one launch a week, then they're not going to overtake Starlink's current launches on Falcon 9 anytime soon.
Yeah, yeah.
So, that's the real key thing here. Yes, let's get a successful launch off, but let's start doing this a lot more quickly than they're doing it at the moment.
Yeah, but as I understand it, mainly because you told me, SpaceX needs the Starship to actually launch its next generation satellites, the version 2 mobile and the version 3 broadband satellites.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the key thing actually for next year really is these Starlink mobile satellites. SpaceX is buying something like $20 billion worth of spectrum from EchoStar. That's going to have to be put to use on these new satellites. It's not going to be very effectively supported on the existing satellites because those are really quite small and have limited capacity, and they're buying a lot of spectrum. So for Starlink Mobile V2, it is really important to have Starship to launch them. Those satellites are a lot bigger, they're a lot more capable, they have bigger antennas, which is going to give better performance as well, and smaller cells on the ground. So that's pretty critical for next year. They've said that they intend to start launching those next summer through into 2028. And again, if they can launch one a week and get 30 plus satellites on each launch, then that sets them up for having a next generation Starlink mobile constellation sometime in the spring or summer of 2028. For the broadband ones, I think it's less critical. I mean, they are going to do these tests of this new higher capacity satellite, but they've already got 12 million customers on the existing constellation. That's growing fast. They're launching those broadband satellites every couple of days in batches on Falcon 9, 25 to 30 satellites per launch. That adds a lot of capacity. I mean, the V2 minis, they can accommodate something like 2,000 customers around the world for every satellite they add. So if they're adding, 80 to 100 satellites a week, and then that's enough for many thousands or even millions of customers every month. And so, I think from the V3 broadband, sure, it would be great to demonstrate that but it's not as essential to spend all your time on with Starship launching those satellites. It's going to be the Starlink mobile ones that make the difference in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, let's just kind of put a plank in the ground, as it were. When do you think they'll have a constellation that's dense enough to serve the subscribers they already have and mobile users that might come onto the network, such
Yeah,
as it is?
yeah, exactly. I mean, on the broadband side, they're doing pretty well. They've got almost 10,000 satellites up there now. Plenty of capacity for the 12 million customers they have to date. I mean, you see that the performance has been increasing over the last year. The data rates, the latency, all those things have been getting better, which is a sign that they are doing okay in keeping up with the subscriber growth with the amount of capacity they're launching. But on the mobile side, a lot of people have said, well, the service is not attracting as much use as people expected. It's low levels of usage. And some people blame that on the performance and say, well, it's just, texting and low speed data for apps at the moment. We really need bigger satellites with broadband. And of course, some of their competitors make that point. Those bigger satellites will certainly deliver a better service. We're going to see how many subscribers show up when there's that better service in operation. And, we just don't know that yet.
Sure. And I mean, here at Next TMT Networks, we always like to make it clear that if you're living in a building that's made of concrete and steel, you're still not going to be able to get satellite service from any of the providers indoors, at least as far as I know. I mean, is there anything that could change that over time?
Well, I mean, it will help if you have a lot of satellites because if you're near a window, there's some chance that you might see a satellite out of the window. If there's lots of satellites all around the building, then that helps. I mean, one of the biggest challenges is if you try and get away with a limited number of satellites, even if you make those satellites bigger and use spectrum that might penetrate the building a little bit better, 1 minute that satellite's going to be on one side of the building, you might see it out of the window. The next minute it's going to be on the other side of the building and you won't see it, and the signal might drop. So, I've used an Iridium phone inside a skyscraper in a big city for a minute or two, and then the satellite moved and you couldn't connect to it.
Right.
And that's what you might experience with some of these systems. As I say, a larger number of satellites will help, but yes, it will still be very limited. And maybe you'll get a text through if you're lucky. You won't be watching videos on your phone connected to a satellite inside a building. The data rates will step down dramatically. And as I say, you might get some notification, but this is predominantly an outdoor only service. And even the data rates you've got outdoors are more limited than what you and me are used to living in big cities.
Yeah. And basically, sometimes if you see a satellite outside your window, that's very extreme space junk coming down. So,
Let's hope not.
yeah. Yeah. Now, we talked about quite a bit about the SpaceX, let's call them hiccups from the Starship launch, but literally they are still way ahead of rivals like Amazon Leo and AST SpaceMobile in this game. So, I mean, what can these other companies do to compete with SpaceX and
Yeah.
Starlink?
It's tough. I mean, one of the biggest challenges, I mean, obviously all the launches to date of those satellites have been on Falcon 9 for Starlink. But one of the biggest challenges is that SpaceX is doing it at its internal cost, which is a lot lower than the price that's charged to the third party. So, Amazon's spending over $10 billion to launch its 3,000 satellites because it's paying full price. SpaceX's list price is now $74 million. But internally, it's costing SpaceX about $20 million a launch to get those Starlink satellites up. So that's a huge disadvantage. As I say, Amazon paying over $10 billion to launch, that amount of mass would, for SpaceX internally with Starlink, would probably only be little more than $2 billion. So it's a huge difference, makes it hard for everyone else to get the critical mass, to get the tempo up, to launch as many satellites as they need to compete. And Amazon's satellites are somewhat comparable in size to the current V2 minis. Obviously, Starlink's V3 satellites are going to be something like 3 times bigger and 10 times
Right.
more capacity. So that's going to put them even further ahead once that picks up.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
even at the current level, Amazon, it's going to be another couple of years at least before they have anything close to the 3,000 satellites they're aiming for, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
still only a third of the capacity that Starlink has today.
yeah, yeah. Well, that seems like a good place to leave the conversation for right now. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thanks very much, Dan. It's been great to be here.
Okay, thanks a lot.